Hey everyone, welcome. We're going to get started here in about 2 minutes. Excuse me. As you guys get logged in, let me know if you can see my screen and if you can hear me talking. Just a few more minutes, we'll get started. As you guys get logged in, feel free to ask questions. Go ahead and chat those questions in, and we'll get to them at some point during the session. And let's see. Yeah, we'll get started here in just a sec. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Appreciate you guys being here. Welcome to the Proving Ground Mastermind. Let's go ahead and get started. As usual, like, share, and follow on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Rumble, and TikTok. All right, so I'm excited, guys. I wasn't, this was just going to be just a regular session, but it just kind of got inspired as I came in this morning, and just want to, and so I elaborated on a few more things, and we're going to get to the topic that we came to talk about, later on in the session. First thing I want to start off with was just talking about perception. So the whole concept of this, when I came up with this, was the perception, like our literal perception of the indicators, like what we see, right? What we see is our perception is reality, right? And it may not be actuality, it may not be everyone else's reality, but it's our reality, right? What we see is reality. And I wanted to talk about that, but as I was kind of going through the session and looking at what we're going to talk about today, I realized that figuratively, obviously, perception is reality, which is how we mostly hear about this whole concept of perception, right? It's like perception figuratively is our reality. The way we think, it projects in our lives, right? If we think negatively, then we end up getting these, negative things occur. We think positively, we end up getting these positive things occur. And some of you guys have been around long enough to kind of know the last, couple of years that I've had. But in April of 2019, my son passed away. The hardest thing I've ever had to do, hands down, bar none. And mind you, for those of you guys that don't know, at 22, I got into a car accident when my son was 2 years old. I broke my left leg in half. I ripped out my femoral artery. My knee came out the back of my leg. I was in surgery for 18 hours because I had almost bled out. As a result of the surgery, I ended up in a wheelchair, and I've been in a wheelchair ever since. and that's difficult. That's hard. That's a very hard transition, especially for someone with who I was and still am in a lot of ways, but very independent, very strong-minded, able-bodied, very healthy in that regard. Did a lot of physical, sports and physical manual labor, things like that, and that was difficult. And and then throughout my life, I've had a really rough go at things, and I'm sure a lot of you can empathize with that. I'm sure a lot of you have had your struggles as well. And after a while, you kind of get this perception that things are just hard. And so when I talk about things, not much has changed beyond that, right? Things are just hard. I've never had anything just come easy. And so when I talk to you guys about things, that's how it comes out. Is it's difficult, right? It's not going to be easy, right? It's simple, but it's not easy, right? There's a difference. It's simple, but it's not easy. It's a lot of work, but the work is worth it. And we've got to put ourselves in that situation when we have to identify with the fact that we in our lives have done difficult things, and maybe we're looking at day trading like, well, this is going to be easy and simple, right? Finally, there's something that's just going to be easy and simple in my life. But that, after a while, I've just come to realize that just doesn't exist for me. Maybe it does for other people, but it doesn't for me. That's not a thing for me. That's not reality. That's not my perception, right? And could I have changed that? Maybe, perhaps. Perhaps I could have changed that. Maybe I could have changed my perspective, and I could have looked at things as being easy or simple and projected that, and maybe that would have occurred for me, right? But I didn't have any reference for that. There was no point of reference for me to say that is easy or simple, and multiple times in my life I've had things easy and simple, and so I can see my perception is that it's easy and it's simple because I have all these other points of reference to show me that things are easy and simple. I've had none of that. I can't even right now think of anything like that, right? And in 2019 when I lost my son, it felt so unfair. Just why does everything have to be? Am I cursed? Like what is it that I'm doing wrong? Like that is just not fair. A parent should never have to bury their child. He's 16 years old. He didn't even live half the life that I've lived. Right? And he had his struggles. He had type 1 diabetes. Obviously his mom and I had separated when he was younger. And I don't know if you guys know anything about type 1 diabetes. It's not like type 2 where, it's because of obesity or anything like that. It's genetic. And you can end up with type 1 diabetes and, be completely healthy, right? And so it's insulin dependent. And so he could eat whatever he wanted to, but he had to take insulin because his pancreas didn't work, right? Normally our pancreas kind of break that stuff down, right? The carbs, and his didn't work. So he had to have insulin for meals. And that means that you prick your finger. And if you guys have ever pricked your finger, you've ever gone and pricked your finger, it sucks, right? Once, but if you had to do it multiple times a day or every time you ate, that's frustrating. And it goes beyond just sucks. Right. In addition to that, you got to stab yourself, and most kids don't like needles. Some adults don't like needles. Right. And this kid had to jab himself with a needle every time he wanted to eat. Right. And if he didn't, then his blood sugar would go really high. Right. And if it got too high, then he could get what's called DKA, diabetic ketoacidosis, which is ultimately what took his life. And he struggled. Like any of us would. Adults struggle with this when they get type 1 diabetes. It's an everyday thing. He had to carry around this pouch with his insulin and an ice pack in it to keep it cool, and syringes, and a monitor, a blood glucose monitor, and strips. He had to prick his finger while he was at school, at lunch, and when he went to friends' houses, we had sleepovers. And if something should happen to one of those glass vials, it was life or death. There's always this life or death thing. And he got really depressed. And I didn't understand it. I didn't get it. Because I had, to that point, come to this understanding of, in my perception of what life was like. right? And life is hard. It's difficult. I'm callous to it now, right? And so I, was just a happy person, right? Didn't mean I didn't get upset. Didn't mean that I had bad days, but I didn't know what depression was. I was sad. My dad passed away 5 years before my son, and that was devastating. And there was a lot of things that had happened in life. Getting a divorce, that was devastating. Listen. I didn't even believe in divorce. Okay, you guys might not know this about me. That's too bad. It's unfortunate. But I'm a Christian. I believe in Christ, and I believe in what the Bible says. And although there are things in the Bible that say, yeah, if there's these certain things that happen, yeah, you can be absolved of your marriage, like sexual immorality, right? If someone cheats, and that just so happened to be the situation for me. But I also was reminded that in the Bible it says that we're to love our wives as Christ loves the church. And think about all the times that we've been unfaithful to, Christ, and he still forgives us. It's like, okay, so if I'm called to do that, then there is no divorce. There's no back door to this. And then I found myself in a situation where she wanted a divorce, and obviously I was, at that point at my wit's end. And so we got a divorce, and that was devastating because it was like praying to Santa Claus. This is not a real thing, but I had to do it. So I understood hard things, and I got sad at times, and I got down, but I'd never understood depression until my son, and it was forced upon me because I couldn't wrap my mind around it. I was like, snap out of it, and I got frustrated with him a lot because it just was foreign to me how life could be right in front of me, have to experience it time in and time out, and have to go through hard things, but still here he is being depressed over things. It's like, this is not new. Why is this, a shock to your system? And it was different, but he had some time that he spent at uni in Salt Lake, which is just a mental hospital. He needed the help, and he actually wanted it. Actually, the first time he didn't want it, and the second time he realized he needed it, and he needed coping mechanisms, and that was really brave and just incredible. So he went, and through that process, they helped me to understand his situation. It's not like it was something that was always making him sad. It wasn't that something had to always occur for him to be sad. He was just sad. He was just depressed. He just had anxiety. And it baffled me, like, well, why? It just is. Well, what happened that caused that today? Well, it's always there. Where did it come from? Right? I couldn't understand it. It was difficult, right? But I figured it out, and it changed my perception. It changed my perspective, and then my perception changed of it. And after he passed away, that was like a warm-up. Having to watch him go through that stuff, and I felt sad for him, of course, when he was, struggling with, mental and emotional things. And I'll be honest, and you guys might not approve, but he was so anxious and depressed about going to school. A smart kid, really, really intelligent, and a gifted writer. Just could throw down a story. It was just incredible, right? But he didn't want to go to school. It was causing him anxiety. He wasn't getting picked on. He wasn't, it was nothing like that. He just had this overwhelming anxiety every time it came time to go to school. And he would go to class, and he'd have to go use the restroom. He'd sit in the restroom, and he'd be hyperventilating, and he's got this, and so his blood would, start to rise, and then he would go low because, he you need to offset that with food, and because that's how it is for type 1 diabetic. And so he had these ups where his blood sugar is really high, and they had these downs where his blood sugar is really low, so it was all over the place. So his perception was like, this is just chaotic, and I'm a mess in my brain. And he couldn't figure out how to get it under control, because when we're in an emotional situation, that's what happens. And finally I went to the school, and I told him, look, I'm taking him out of school. He's not going to come here anymore. Well, where are you going to put him? What school? No school. He's not going to any school. Well, school is important. I understand, but if my son's dead, what does it matter? Well, school is important. I say, you didn't hear me. if he is dead because he decides that it's just too much and he's going to take his life, or he ends up in the hospital, what importance is school? So I told him, look, I don't care if you're a bum on my couch. If you're a bum on my couch for the rest of your life, as long as you're on this side of the grave. Because my perception of the situation changed. Believe me, I'm bringing this around, guys. I'm bringing this around. This is important. And I got excited when I got inspired to tell you about this. So I had to let it out. If this is not what you were expecting, you wanted something else, just tune out. Just, don't watch this one. Don't attend today. Go take a break. But this is where we're at today. This is what I'm going to talk about today. I got to get this out there. The perception changed for me, and I realized that it was life or death, and it had little to do with, it had everything to do, but at the same time, little to do with type 1 diabetes specifically. It had everything to do with his mental well-being. And when it came to life or death, I wanted him to live. He wanted to live. I wanted to figure out how to make that happen for him, even if it meant that he amounted to nothing by social standards. If he never went to college, never got a job, if he was always just that bum on my couch, 40 years old, still living at home, fine. And I'd get frustrated because I'd come home and the house was a mess and he hadn't done anything all day. And immediately the frustration would go away because he'd greet me with a smile and he'd say, "Hi, Dad." Now you can't believe how much we take those small things for granted. All right, I'm going to keep it together. But we take those small things for granted because our perception, even in those situations, is we've always got them. They're always going to be there. And we got other things going on. We got to pay the bills. We got to, I've got these webinars. This week I've got a webinar today, tomorrow, Thursday, Friday, right? And there's always other things. There's always stuff. There's always something, right? So we overlook the small things. We overlook the blessings that we have in our lives on a daily basis because we choose to believe, we choose to embrace the perception that things are just bad, right? And I did for a long time, right? And I still do in a lot of ways. And now it's more like, okay, fine, they're bad, but what am I going to do in this situation? How am I going to show up to the situation? How am I going to react in that situation? Am I going to succumb to it? Am I just going to allow it to overtake me and be a negative person? Or am I going to use that to fuel me to be positive? Because I know that in my life, in spite of all the things that have happened to me, I've been able to persevere. So it's just another opportunity to persevere, do what I've always done, right? And when he passed, it was tough. It seemed impossible. And, of course, I went to right where I needed to go, was to God. That's the other thing. If you guys are going to be offended by God or Bible or whatever, today it's going to come up. So you've been warned. If that's offensive to you, you can just turn it off. No one's forcing you to watch. Today's not the day for you. I'm not trying to be offensive. I'm not trying to, hurt your feelings. It just is. It just is. It's what it is. This is what it's going to be today. I'm going to show you guys some stuff. Yeah, we'll get to that. But in spite of that, I'm hard-headed and I'm weak in those types of situations. And so I dealt with depression and I hid out and I became more recluse and I didn't want to socialize. I didn't want to, hang out. I felt uncomfortable in social situations, which is really weird for me, by the way, because I like being the center of attention. Anybody that knows me knows that. I'm not shy about it. I like being the center of attention. I do. I like being on stage. I like doing webinars. I like to be able to teach you, bring you guys something that helps you guys out. It makes me feel joy. And so of course I want to do those things, right? Um, and for you, that it might look differently, but then I had this other thing happen where I was depressed, and I hid it because I'm like I got this, I can overcome this. No, I couldn't do it. As hard as I tried, to change the mindset, change the mentality, I just couldn't do it, and it led to other destructive behavior, right? I wanted to have this different perspective. I wanted my perception of the situation to be that, I'm going to do what I've always done and overcome these hard, difficult things. And I couldn't. So I tried to drown it out with habits that I already had, right? Oh, yeah, I drink occasionally. I drink alcohol occasionally, right? But now it's like I'm drinking alcohol every day. And then you just become a functional alcoholic, where it's like, unless you smell it on me, you don't know I'm drunk. But I've already had a fifth this morning, right? This afternoon, this evening, all day, every day. And that led to other chaos with not just inside myself, inside my own brain, but with other people, with the relationships that I had, which was just all too convenient because I was trying to recluse myself anyway. And it became destructive. And still I'm like praying to God in the midst of that. And still he was there in the midst of that. But I wasn't listening. Sometimes I think we pray and it's a one-sided conversation. Maybe the answer is there, or maybe we're not asking the right question, whatever. But if we're not listening, it's just a one-sided conversation, right? And the answer could be right there. He'd be trying to give it to you in a million different ways. You're not listening to it, right? Because your brain's just not turned on that way. It's not focused in that direction. It's very, and then in those times it was very me, right? And it affected a lot of aspects of my life, and I'll be honest, I don't even know how in the last 6 months let's say 6 months ago that I made that transition, and I'm just guessing at 6 months. I mean, that's how oblivious I am to it, where I made that switch, where I really started to come out of it. I know how I did it. I know how it happened, right? We always say God's in control. God's in control. Yeah, he's in control. I was listening to a sermon on Spotify yesterday and today, and he says it was Stephen Furtick. I don't know if you guys know who that is, but he's a cool dude. Anyway, so he just says God's in control, but God doesn't always take control, right? I mean, God's in control, and he's making a joke. He's like, God's in control, but he's not going to stop you from eating that fourth helping of mashed potatoes, and you're trying to lose weight, you're trying to get in shape, God's in control, but he's not just going to give you the muscle, and he's not going to lift the weights for you. Yeah, he's in control, but he's not going to just always take control. That's our free will, that's our free agency. And it wasn't until I decided that I was going to have radical obedience. Radical obedience. Radical, like weird, awkward, like this. This is not comfortable, guys. We came here to talk about trading. I'm talking about God. This is not comfortable for me. It might not be comfortable for you. It's not. But that's what I got. And so I said, okay, I'm going to have radical obedience. All right, God, I'm going to have radical obedience. So you call me to say it, you call me to speak it, to do it, I'm going to do it. And if that means leave and you guys never see from me again here in this facet as a professional, I'll walk away from it right now. If I'm not kidding. That's not hyperbole. It's not an idle. I've already conceded to that. And believe me, that was difficult because I love this. I'm passionate about this, but I'm more passionate about God now, I realize. And whatever he wants, that's what I want to do, because I see where I was and I see where I am and I see how I got there. And it was all that gazelle intensity, all that focus, all that. Well, it's not just a checkbox that I say, oh, I prayed today, I read some scriptures. Hey, bless this food. All right, thanks. Okay, I'm good. Right now, I'm gonna go back to my other habits, my comfortability, my Barker lounger in my brain. I don't have to worry about everything that I say and everything that I do and everything that I speak, and just stick with those other habits, not create new habits that are healthier, spiritually healthier. Right? I mean, I try to read and I fall asleep. Right? Am I going to sit there and read the Bible and fall asleep? I'm not going to get anything out of it. Right? There's all these excuses. All right, well, fine. I'll just listen to it then, and I'll hear other people's perspectives, and my perception will then change. Right? Because then it becomes easy, because then you create habits out of those things. Right? Just like it became easy to deal with bad, difficult, terrible things in my life. Right? Because I just embraced that concept. So my perception was affected by that, right? So looking forward, I perceive differently now. And so in whatever I do now, I look at it through those eyes. I look at it through, okay, well, the Bible says put on the full armor of God so you can withstand the slings and arrows of the enemy. Okay, well, that's a daily thing, right? It's not like, okay, one day there's going to be this huge, what is it, apocalyptic war, right? And we're all just going to, you got to pick a side and you got to get ready for war, right? No, the war is every day in your brain, in your heart, in your mind, in your spirit, right? Every day you got to put on that armor. Every day, every second. I realize now that when I don't, it creates this void between me and God. It's this separation, and I feel it. I feel it now, and I'm glad that I do. I'm glad because I've never been more cognizant of it than I am now. Right, and so yes, I wanted to talk about perception. That was the whole concept. Was I want to talk about perception, a little perception of the indicators, and then something else just started happening, and I needed to. And I don't know. Somebody that's listened to this now, or somebody's that'll listen to it later, you need this. I don't know what or how or why or what was said or what, and you don't have to even tell me. I don't want the accolades. It's not one of those things where I'm like, oh yeah, look at me, I'm doing. No, I honestly, and this is the God's honest truth. I don't want the accolades because it's not mine. This is not me. This is just God says do this, and I'm going to do it. That's it, right? But I know I just had this sense. Look, somebody needs this, man. You got to say this. And I'm like, well, what am I going to say? Right? I'm going to step on some toes. I'm going to offend some people. Like, this is a business. This is not the way businesses act. This could be bad for business. Right? And then I remember the other day where I was like praying and I was like, God, send me, I'll go. Right? I'll listen. When the Holy Spirit within me says to do something, I'm going to do it. I'm going to have radical obedience. Right? And then, the other day, I felt impressed to say something I didn't, and I couldn't leave it alone. It just stuck in my brain. So I'm like, all right, tomorrow I'm going to do it, and I didn't. And then the third day I finally did, and then I felt better, like, all right. And it wasn't like this condemnation, like you're going to burn in hell if you don't say this or do this. It's just like, like your friend prodding you, come on, just jump off the cliff into the water. Come on, it's fun. Don't worry about it. It's kind of like one of those types of anxious situations, right? It's kind of like that. And so today I'm like, no, man, it's Tuesday. I got a lot to do this week. I can't have this hanging over my head. I got to say it today. I got to do it today. So that's why we're talking about what we're talking about right now. All right. And like I said, if it's offensive to you, if I'm not trying to be, but just it's simple. There's a little X button on the upper right of your screen where you can close the web browser, or you can press the back button, turn off your computer. There's a number of ways you can shut me up right now. So, I'm not on a loudspeaker outside of your house, right? You can just turn it off right now. That's all right. I'm going to take this one moment right now to have radical obedience, because I'm on a whole different trajectory, and I got to do this. I got to. There's no other way for me. And I know that this is what I think this is what's leading into my retirement. I'm starting to believe that and I don't know if it's I don't know when and if but I'm starting to see that maybe it's time to do something different. Something's more conducive to God's kingdom. I got to seek His first, not mine. All right, guys. Well, let's transition to this other stuff here. But I just whatever reason I know somebody needed that. I mean honestly, I'm not sure how or what or why, but it's just, and I don't think I'm wrong. Otherwise I wouldn't say it. I believe somebody needed that because I definitely would have preferred not to, say it. And it's just being honest. It's awkward, right? I was talking to somebody the other day. I said, it's like corny. It's like, for me, it's like corny to talk about Christ. It just is. I can lie to you and say it's not, right? But it is. It is like, have you heard the good news, right? It's just corny and it's cheesy. So what? I'm starting to get to that point where it's like I don't care. As long as the eyes of God, He's pleased with me. I don't really care about what anybody else thinks. In that regard, right? Like, fine, I'm gonna be corny and cheesy. I'm gonna be one of those weirdos. All right, cool. Let's go. Let's do it. Okay. So I want to talk about your superpower. So Nobel Prize winner Alexis Carrel said intuition comes very close to clairvoyance. It appears to be the extrasensory perception of reality. Okay, this extra is like third eye, extrasensory perception of reality. And this sounds great, right? You hear this, and at first you want to accept it but for what I'm sure he meant it, right? Because we're saying it's a superpower. Intuition comes very close to clairvoyance. I mean, if you could tell the future, that's a good thing, right? Especially as day traders, right? So it appears to be the extrasensory perception of reality. Here's the thing is that sometimes if we have these negative things rattling around in our brain, right, we got this bad brain, right? And our intuition always tells us something bad's going to happen, and then something bad happens, right? We're like, I knew that was going to happen. Even if 9 out of 10 times the bad thing didn't happen, right? We're watching a trade and we're like, I should take that trade. It's my setup, and I don't take the trade, and then it doesn't work out. And I'm like, see, that's why, right? We've got this negative track going, and then that's how we use our superpower. We're the evil ones. We're the bad guys in the movie, right? We're not using our superpowers for good. We're using them for bad. I don't mean like robbing banks and stuff. I just mean by tearing ourselves down, by destroying our perception, right? We're using our intuition. We're feeding our intuition with things that bad things are going to happen, right? So we're feeding that. We're saying, yeah, our intuition told us it was going to happen. I'm going to trust my intuition that bad things are going to happen, right? I've got this foresight that says, if I do this, something bad's going to happen, right? And even in the instances where you're like, well, I'm just going to be courageous, right? I'm not going to be fearless, but I'm going to just have courage in the face of fear, and I'm going to do it anyway, right? And you do it, and it doesn't work out, right? And you're just like, man, I knew it. I knew I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have had to talk myself into that. Well, it's because X, Y, and Z. Hindsight's 20/20, right? So you go back, you start looking at all the reasons why you shouldn't have done that, right? Instead of looking at all the reasons why you should have done it. Did it follow your trade plan? Yeah. Did you have you back tested it? Yada, yada, so on and so forth. Yep, did all that. Okay. Have you, is this the time that you're supposed to trade it? Yeah. Is the currency pair you're supposed to trade it? Yep, check mark, right? Okay. And you executed, you used the right win percentage or risk percentage, you used the right stop loss and take profit. It's everything was present based on how you back tested. Yep, check. Okay, good. It was a successful trade. It was good. Move on. You did everything correctly. Even after doing everything correctly, you're not always going to win, right? So how are we using our superpower? Are we using it to just continue to give us more evidence that we're failures and we can't succeed? and that everything is stacked against us, in spite of the fact that we keep on trying, all we're doing in trying is giving ourselves more ammunition against ourselves to give up. And eventually that's what happens. You give up, right? And it might not look like, oh, I'm going to throw in the towel, but it may look like, well, all I've got left in my account is X, so I'm just going to go for broke, right? I'm just going to lay it all on the line because I've got maybe 6 or 7 trades left before my account is at 50% drawdown or before my account is gone. So why don't I just lay it all down right now, right? And that's, I mean, we can, I know that some of you guys get to that place because I've talked to some of you guys, right? We're using our superpowers for bad, not good, right? So like I was saying before, God is in control, but he doesn't always take control. So it's in our control, right? Obviously you follow, the leading of the Holy Spirit, you follow the Bible, in that regard. I just want to clean that up really quickly, right? But we have that control. We can choose, right? In our brains, we can change our perspective. Our perception will become differently, right? Our figurative. So we choose one, right? We choose the bad brain, the one that's just kind of jacked up and messed up, and we tell ourselves, I'm never going to figure this out. I can't seem to pick the right setup. It's my coach's fault. It's my busy schedule. It's my, spouse's fault. It's my kid's fault. It's my, we can just blame and blame and blame and blame, right? I'm not gifted like them, right? I can't do what Hiram or Troy or these other students do. I'm not gifted like that. I can't do that, right? I can't do this. I was foolish to think that this was even going to work. I was foolish to think that I could even try this. I was foolish to think that I deserve, right? Hear me out. I was foolish to think that I deserve financial peace, that I deserve money in the bank, that I deserve to not have to live paycheck to paycheck. Don't love money so much that you put so much emphasis on it. It's not that important. And you think, well, it's not, I don't like love money. Yes, you do. Look, but this is my perspective, right? If you're saying, I don't deserve money, right? It's like saying I don't deserve hammer. I don't deserve screwdriver. It's a tool. That's all, right? We put too much emphasis on it. Do we need it? Yeah, we need it, and you can get it just like when you need the right tool for the right job. Yeah, yep. But just get it. Don't believe that you don't deserve it. You do. You can. You will. You should. Right? Just get that out of your brain. Burn it out. Right? I was foolish to think that I deserved better. I could even say that to myself. I was foolish to think that it couldn't be easy. Easy. Right? Because nothing's easy for me. So maybe I am foolish to think that it can't be easy. Maybe it can be easy. Right? What are those things for you? What are the things that you're thinking, right? This was a mistake. I shouldn't have done this in the first place. What was I thinking? My uncle, who is rotting away on a couch somewhere, never amounted to anything, says he's tried everything but never committed to anything and fails, told me that this was not going to work. I don't want to tell him he was right. But man, he was right. This was a mistake. My spouse told me it was going to be a mistake. I let them down, right? My friends laughed at me because they knew better. I've got to face them, right? This was a mistake. Maybe not, right? It's all how you look at it and how you take it. Or we could use our superpower, right? This quote unquote clairvoyance, right? This intuition, this different perspective, right? To say something different, right? I can do this. I faced harder. Look how far I've come. I'm doing it. I'm disciplined. Start writing over all those other things. It's within my power. I get to decide. If they can do it, so can I. Guys, listen, I grew up in Tucson, Arizona, in southern Arizona, on the south side of Tucson, right? 20, 30, or 45 minutes from Mexico. It was in the 90s per capita that we had a higher crime rate, a higher murder rate than New York in the 90s. It was a bad place. Valencia and 12th. You should Google it. I don't know. But there are literally one or more gangs on each of those corners on that intersection. And some of them are the same. They're like this side bloods and that side bloods, and they don't like each other. And there's Crips, and there's Oviejo, and there's, ESPP. There's all kinds of stuff, right? There's race wars, and there's gang wars, and there's drugs, and there's violence. There's all these crazy, crazy things. It was nothing nice. Okay? I didn't go to college. I worked manual jobs. Before I day traded, I worked in a call center. I worked my way up, and I ran the whole call center after a moment, right? And normally that's a job that you have to have a degree for. Right? I'm not smarter than you. I have to try really hard. I have to dedicate myself to things in order for them to work. Nothing comes easy for me. I put thousands of hours in those indicators, thousands of hours in staring at them. And now I'm giving you guys the shortcut. Other coaches are giving you guys the shortcut. Nobody listen, think about back testing right now. Think about the golden ratio analysis right now. Think about what that is right now, okay? I have no background in analytical science. Yes, I worked in market research, so I borrowed from that, right? But I wasn't the analyst. I didn't go to school for that. I didn't have a degree in any of that. Right? Okay. I was you without that information. I had to create that information. I had to teach myself how to look at the indicators illogically. That wasn't a thing, guys, when I started. It was not a thing. People weren't talking about how when the lines point down, it means up, and when they point up, it means down, and when they're flat this way, and then when they're that way. None of that. Patterns weren't a thing. None of that. They weren't a thing. We created those things. The golden ratio analysis, back testing wasn't even talked about. Okay, this is a long time ago, over a decade. Right? A lot of these things weren't discussed and weren't talked about. They weren't taught. Right? So it's like, how did we get to where we are then? And you guys have these answers. Right? So yes, if they can do it, so can you, right? You are a pro day trader. Act like it, right? You got this. You're successful. You do hard things. Do you not? Think about the times in your life where you've had to do hard, difficult things. Is it just once? Is it just twice? Have you had to do hard things before? Are you still here? You do hard things. You are successful at doing hard. I don't even know you. I just know humans. You're successful at doing hard things. Always figure it out. When you put your mind to it, you always figure it out, right? You have what you need. I have what I need. You got this. Start writing over all those bad thoughts. It's corny. I'm not telling you to fake it till you make it. Don't lie to yourself. Don't lie to yourself. But say, I want to believe that I got this. I want to believe that I'm successful. I want to believe that I do hard things. I want to believe that I always figure it out. Give yourself those reasons. Do you do hard things? Have you done hard things? Is it within your power? Have there been other situations where it's within your power? Do you get to decide? Have there been other situations where you got to decide? Grab those examples, not the examples that tell you all that other stuff. Grab the even if they're small, minute examples. Go and create examples so that they're fresh in your brain. Doesn't matter what it is. It's like, I've been wanting to, build that little garden for the spouse outside. It's simple, but it's hard work. I'm going to go do it because I need to know that I do hard things. I need to know that I always figure it out. I need to know that I have what I need to make that happen. I get to decide. It's within my power. I'm going to go do that just so I have an example of doing hard things. just so I have an example of being successful. You can't tell me that you haven't faced harder than this. If you have, man, I'm jealous. I'm jealous of you if you've never faced harder things than what we're doing here as professional day traders. I'm jealous, right? But guess what? After you do this successfully, check. I've just done the hardest thing I ever had to do. What's next? What's next? Get hungry. Let's go, right? All right. So premonition, right? A strong feeling that something is about to happen. Again, we can have these premonitions about good or bad things. And it's crazy when that mindset changes, when that perception, that perspective starts to change, these premonitions start to change, right? I remember I was driving with Candace down the road, and it was happening often, where she's like, "Oh, I just got this bad feeling. Slow down." And nothing ever happened, but she just told herself, "Well, it's probably because I told him to slow down and nothing happened," right? So we started like talking about it seriously, and it's like, what happens if something does happen? Then you just solidify in your brain that premonition that something bad was going to happen. You knew it was going to happen, right? Well, why can't we just have these premonitions something good's going to happen? Right? Because a lot of times we feel like we don't deserve it, or we just had something good happen, or whatever it might be, right? We make all these excuses in our brains why good things can't just happen. Can't just happen to us, for us, through us, right? Let's work into that step, right? Happen to us, happen through us. A lot of times, if I want something good to happen, if I'm praying about it, I'm going to pray for somebody else for that same thing. Or I'm going to do that for someone else, whatever that might look like. And it's interesting how you get breakthrough in that way. It really is. It puts you in the situation. It puts you right in the middle of the situation. A lot of times the answer is right there. You just can't see it. But you can see it for someone else. It's simple. Believe me, it's simple for coaches, for us coaches to look at a situation and be like, oh, this is what's wrong. On paper, this is what's wrong, right? A lot of the conversation lately, especially with Troy and Tyler and a lot of these other coaches, is how students have their setup and it's lock, stock, and barrel, back tested. They know exactly how it's going to play out. They know exactly when it's going to happen, what currency pair it's going to happen on. They're ready to go. They're hype, right? And they go and they get in there, and it's like everything went out the window, and they're pushing the button on things that they shouldn't have entered, times they shouldn't have entered. They're chasing trades. They're revenge trading, right? They're smoking that hopium and releasing the stop loss and hoping that the market is going to return. You guys know what I'm talking about, right? I've done this before. Don't tell me you haven't. It's all right. It's all right, right? Like, on paper, it's easy for us to look back and say, hey, look, let's look at these trades. Okay, this is your trade setup, correct? Yes. Okay, that is the trade that you put in, correct? Okay, why doesn't your trade setup match the trade? Oh, well, because, okay, well, hold on. This is your trade setup, and that's the trade you put in. Why doesn't your trade setup match the trade? Well, because, okay, the answer is you did not follow your plan, right? You didn't execute according to your discipline. It's according to your plan, right? And that's huge. That's huge. You did all this work, all this painstaking, eye-bleeding work, boring for most of you guys, right? Backtesting sucks. It's terrible, right? And you've got everything that you need, and then you deviate. Or you hear about this other trade, and you take that. Believe me, I've done it. I've done it a million times. I'm there with you. I'm not saying, I'm not going to accuse you of anything that I've not been guilty of. I had to fix those things, right? Just like you have to fix those things. Sometimes it's just acknowledging that those things are there for us to be able to fix them, right? So back to this premonition, a strong feeling that something is about to happen. Something good's about to happen, right? A strong feeling that something good is about to happen, right? Sometimes when waiting for our setups to occur, we see it coming before it actually appears, right? That's what we talk about with dirty pressure. That's what I've been trying to show you guys, right? With that convergence. that those lines are starting to come together, and major minor are already oversold, and you can see that they're all gassed out, and that green line is definitely going to pop on top of the red line in pressure, and major minor being pointed up. And so on that next candle, right? So now let's just say 10 minutes before that happens, right? You're 10 minutes before the candle ends, and green is not on top of red yet, and it's not going to be on top of red until the next candle, right? So you're 10 minutes before the end of the candle that you're currently watching. You see that convergence, you're like, oh, nice. Next candle, it's right at the time that I trade, and I'm going to have dirty pressure. You know that it's going to happen. What color is the candle usually when the dirty pressure setup occurs? Green, if you're buying, right? You already have a green candle. Well, if you already have a green candle, you knew it was going to set up for that. When should you really have gotten into that trade? Not when the dirty pressure happened, right? The candle before it. You saw it coming. If you saw it coming, right, the next candle, green pops on top, major or minor pointed up, and the candle is green. You could have been in on that candle, right? Figure out how to get in on that candle, right? So sometimes waiting for our setup to occur, we see it coming before it actually happens. The ability to predict your setup's occurrence prior to its arrival is the beginning of wisdom, and a sign that you are now beginning to view the indicators with more discretion, which is clutch. When you get to that place where you can read them discretionarily, it's over. It is over. Lock, stock, it's done. Right? So let's look at some obvious examples of these occurrences. And we're just going to take a little bit. I was going to go over this, guys. This thing's giving me a headache. I don't know how you guys do this. I was trying to figure out this 4x2, and I don't know where the execution would be. I mean, here's a 30-minute. Here's a 15-minute. Here's the 10-minute. Here's the 5-minute. But that's all the posts. So the post at the 5-minute and the 10, 15, and 30 are all according to the specs on that trade, and the red candles on bottom. But is that the only time you would take it, or would you say, okay, 30-minute just posted, with the parameters. Now within 15 minutes of that, or 30 minutes of that, you'd need the 15-minute and the 10-minute and the 5-minute, or is it like if it's here, then it's 10-minute here would be 2 10-minutes would be more than 1 15-minute. I was just like, man, forget this. This is stupid. So somebody's gonna have to show that to me, otherwise I can't break it down for you guys. Oh, that just, holy cow, man, that's a lot of stuff. Anyway, let's get to what we're going to talk about. Okay. So, there's situations like this first example where we can see, okay, majors are going to be pointing down soon, right? We're kind of in the hiccup phase, right? And a lot of times when we make that, it's more common for majors to start pointing down, right? And then pressure, if majors point down, pressure is going to start pointing down because green's going to, start either popping on bottom or narrowing with red. And so we can see, okay, this right here generally works out to be like this, and pressure down, right? And so when those things occur, let's put it like this, if the majors, if we're looking at this one candle ahead and the majors look like this now and pressure was like this, what color candle would the next candle be? It'd be a red one, right? If we know that's how it's going to end up, then we know that the next candle is going to be red. The question is how much. That's where backtesting comes in, right? But now we're looking at it more discretionarily, okay? So we see, okay, majors, and that's generally what they do when they create kind of that hiccup, right? Like green up, red down, or overbought, it's, green down, red up, whatever it might be, is after that, they usually look like that, like a duckbill, right? So if you know, okay, major's going to be pointed down, and pressure's already looking like it's converging positively. It didn't cross below, but they both still pointed down, right? And so if they look like this, what do the indicators generally look like, right? Or rather, I'm sorry, when the indicators look like this, what does the market generally look like? What is happening? Is it moving up or is it moving down? In this case, if it's like this, a lot of times we've got red movement. We got a red candle. We got down movement, right? So if we know that that's what it's going to look like on the next candle, and we know that when it looks like that, it's red, a red candle is the result, right? Then do you see the opportunity we're missing? Okay, let's go to our next example. Right here. This is a really common one, right? Majors pointing up and minors going to fatigue, right? How do we know that minors are going to fatigue? Some of you guys already know the answer. How do we know that for sure minors are not going to be pointed up on the next candle? We know for sure. Hands down, bar none. You will never, ever see a situation like this where the minors are continuing, both gray and black are still pointing up after what they look like right here, because the value is 160. Yep, thank you, Jordan. You got it. Yep, you said it right as you chatted it in right as I said it. You got it. The value is 160. So we know that on the next candle, the minors are not going to point up, right? And that helps to some degree. It also helps if we know what the majors are going to be doing, right? And we see we're likely, so majors pointing up and minors fatiguing. That's what's likely to happen. Even if majors bend a little bit, right, they're still likely to be pointed up while minors are fatiguing, right? A lot of times when we get that, especially in this situation, it's like the next candle could very well be a whiplash, right? It's a whiplash because it kind of followed from oversold almost to overbought. Now it's not in the whiplash pattern yet, right? But then there it is, right? And so we got a whiplash, and with a whiplash, it's like a little bit up, a little bit down. You know, first candle we usually go up, wait for the next candle, and then short, right? But we saw that coming. So if we know when the whiplash forms, it's usually a green candle, then we're not saying, okay, now here's the whiplash, now we take our trade. We're saying, oh, the whiplash is going to form, right? What is that telling us? That's telling us that, well, if there's usually a green candle on the candle where the whiplash forms, then that means the market's likely to buy, right? And so we got the buy. There's the buy, and now we got the whiplash. Now we got another trade, right? Possibly two, because the whiplash is you buy and then wait another candle and sell. I don't know how this one worked out. Yeah, there's buy, moved up, 8.1, and then you look for a sell, right? And there's your sell. Okay. But we saw that setting up when we really start to look at it, right? When we have that premonition that our setup is coming. So if we're looking at this, then we're saying, oh, our setup is coming. Because generally when it looks like this, our setup occurs. So while the setup is occurring, while it is happening, while it is forming, what's happening, right? So if I replayed from right here when this candle first started, we might not be in a whiplash scenario, or just before it, right on that candle, at the end of that candle, right? But we know, okay, sometimes we can say, yeah, that's going to happen on the next candle. Okay, great. As a result of that forming, the market moved up. So really, we wouldn't have taken our trade until right there, right? Up, and then next trade on the next candle, down. But again, if we know that it's going to be a green candle as it's forming, then we can take it here. And maybe even before that, right? Just depending on the situation. All right, let's look at this example. This one's really simple, right? This one's really, and actually I don't think this one even turns into a flat top, but possible flat top soon. How do we know that? How do we know that this is a possible flat top? Well, we can see that we have some soft commitment by way of majors. Minors are already oversold, right? So these could end up oversold. And our value is already maxed out as the line is pointed down. And so when our value is already maxed out, we know that if it stays going short, if the next candle is at all red, at all, then this is going to be flat. If that candle is red at all, this is going to be flat, because it doesn't go any further than that. And then all we would need is for these to be oversold, right? So possible flat top soon. So what happens when this line goes flat and these go oversold? What color is the candle usually when that occurs? It's red. and then we have our pattern, and then we take our trade, right? But again, if we know that the candle where our setup is going to occur, not where we would take it based on our setup, but where it's going to occur, reacts X way in the market, then aren't we losing opportunities? And guys, I know that you guys see this stuff. So for those of you guys that are a little confused and say, well, I don't see, I never see my setup before it occurs, you're not there yet. But I know there's a lot of you guys in here that see your setup before it occurs. I've talked to you guys about this stuff, right? You're like, yeah, I can, usually when this happens, the setup's is going to start to occur, right? And then it occurs, right? So right there, flat, it's not over, red major is not oversold. But you get the idea, right? We kind of saw, okay, that's going to flatten, and if these continue to go down, then we're going to get some short or red movement, right? Down movement. Okay, so it's not just using just the fact that that was at negative 100, because we've seen where it goes negative 100 and then points up, and then there's a green candle, and it never goes flat. But there are other ways that we can see if that candle is at all red, then we're going to get a flat top right here, right? And then all we need is for these to be oversold, which they weren't. But this example right here is actually our next example, because we can see that four-way possible, right? Where the lines follow each other, the majors follow the minors, and a lot of times you can see that it'll happen as a result of like a failed hiccup pattern or a failed head fake, where the lines, what does it look like on the first red candle on the 2? Wait, I'm not sure what you're asking. That red candle right there? I wonder if you're asking about this one right here, Jared. So, yeah, I mean, there's other places that we definitely would have gotten in. But this is more referencing if our setup hasn't occurred yet, but it's about to occur, right? A lot of times we can see it before it occurs. Yeah, I mean, there's probably plenty of places that we could have taken trades prior to, the examples that we're looking at. But what we're looking at more than that is because right here, let's just say right here from this position, right? There's no way we could have we could have known that was going to turn into a flat top, or that it even looked like it was going to be a flat top. Right here, there was nothing about the thick orange telling us that it was going to go all the way to negative 100 and then go flat from that position. So yeah, we could have taken a short there, absolutely. But what we're talking about today is looking at when we know, okay, right here, for example, when we know that, or a lot of times it occurs that this and this and this result in the flat top on the next candle, right? Because there's enough evidence there to show us, yeah, the flat top's about to occur, right? If that's what we're waiting for, well, versus waiting for, we could even take it a step further, right? We can go and test our theory and see, okay, how accurate can we call that, right? And then there's the flat. So I'm not sure if I got back to the right candle, Jared, but I'm assuming that was a candle you were talking about. Okay, so right here, four-way possible, we can see the major and minors led and majors kind of followed lazily, and now they're getting oversold. So all we need, and they're separated, right? There was that separation. So all we need is for the minors to kind of do one thing, like they're doing, or even semi-cross, and then majors persist through, and then we have our four-way. And then, of course, a four-way is different than a whiplash. A four-way, we would actually just expect some long movement. And this is not the best four-way, primarily because it kind of crossed and pointed up, which generally gives the majors more room to go south to sell. But you can see that we still saw right here that we could potentially get that four-way, right? And that's the point that we're trying to make. So if that's the case, if we're expecting to get that four-way down here, something that looks like it, what color is the candle usually? Red. And when it looks like that, when it's going oversold, right? And so we could have gotten in on that before our setup occurred, before we'd be looking to take that trade, right? And still could have taken the next trade, which would have been a long trade for a four-way. And that was not too impressive. It did go up 5.5. Really didn't go down too much, but you get the idea. All right, let's look at this last example right here. This is probably the most common one for some of you guys. Is dirty pressure possible on the next candle, right? Because we've got majors, starting to push up, convergence, negative convergence, right? So it's likely that on the next candle, green's going to be on top, and if green's on top and all four of these lines are pointed up, which is the direction they're already starting to head, then we'll have dirty pressure on the next candle. Now, when dirty pressure occurs like this, pointed up like this, what color is the candle usually? Usually it's green, right? So from this position, we could possibly take in a long or a buy trade, right? And again, I don't want you guys just to take these trades unless it's a demo. I want you to practice with it. I want you guys to start looking, having some foresight, having that premonition, having that intuition that says, okay, my setup's about to occur, right? Start looking at when it's about to occur and what happens in the market. And then, you'll start to get an eye for when it's about to occur. You'll get really good at that. And what happens when it occurs, what color that candle is, and how far it moves. Because you could very well be taking a trade right there, right? So that's what I want you guys to be able to see is start taking those steps back and look at, okay, discretionarily, where could I have gotten into this trade? Right? I see where my setup is, but was there anything else leading up to that said, in my brain, in my perception, right, did I literally perceive, right, that the green is going to pop on top and all four of these lines point up on the next candle, right? Yeah, green's on top, all four lines point up. And when that's my perception, what happens in the market? Does it move up? Does it move down, right? Okay, so how can I capitalize on that? All right. So that's what I want to run down for you guys. I know that the first part of this was a little preachy. It wasn't my intention, but I want you guys to have breakthrough. I want you guys to do hard things. I want you guys to change your perspective. I want you guys to change the intuition that you have. Sometimes it tells you negative things. I want you guys to have positive and look at this like something you can do, that it is possible, that you do deserve it, that you have everything that you need to be successful with this. You've got this. I know you do. I know you've got this, right? And consider, do you want to know how to put in a whole bunch of trades? Do you want to know how to do this? Do you want to know a million setups? Or do you just want to be successful at this? Do you just want to be able to replace your income, build wealth, live a better lifestyle, give your kids a better lifestyle, give them better schools to go to, take better vacations, live in a bigger house, whatever it is, right? Whatever it is, retirement, whatever, right? Not live paycheck to paycheck, right? Not work so many hours, whatever that might be. Have it. You've got it. Is that what you want, or do you want a higher win percentage and a lot of pips and know all the setups and know which one? Because right now, if you're still struggling, you got to pick one. If it's just a high win rate and you don't care about the profit, or getting a whole bunch of pips and you're not concerned about the profit, or knowing all the setups and knowing everything there is to know about the indicators, and you're not worried about how that affects your bank account, fine. But don't cry when it doesn't affect your bank account positively. Now, if you want to win and you want to affect your bank account, you want to affect your financial trajectory, then forget everything else. Pick one thing and ride it out until it makes you rich. One thing. Get it. You already have it. You already have everything that you need to be successful here. Forget everything else. Use just the things that are going to get you paid, get you to your why you're here, why you wanted to be here to begin with. Get that. Right? Surround yourself with people that want to get that too, even if it's not in day trading. Get that one thing. Buckle it around you real tight and ride it out until you get paid, until you get to where you want to be with it. And then after that, after you've freed up time, you don't have to work your 9 to 5, you're not so stressed about things, then you can master everything else because you got the rest of your life to do the rest of that. Right now, let's just get you paid. All right, guys, I appreciate you guys' time. Evan, it's my pleasure. Thank you. Thank you for joining. Um, yeah, man. Evan, believe me, man, that is difficult. It's tough, and it feels it. You get that pit in your stomach, and it makes you physically ill. Believe me, I know all about that, and I know there are other people on this webinar that can empathize with that. It sucks, it does, but and there's no buts about it. It just sucks. I'll tell you this though, if you can rise above that, it doesn't get any harder than that in day trading. That's not like hyperbole. That's literally, it doesn't. That's the worst thing that can happen. The worst thing that can ever happen to you, Evan, as a professional day trader, check. You've already done it. You've already done it. To quit now, and I'm not saying you aren't. I'm glad that you're motivated for this, and I love that you are, and so I'm glad that you've got hope, because that's the start. But if you quit now, then it's all for nothing. You actually did the hardest thing that you can ever do in day trading to overcome, and just walk away, right? But if you overcome it, then nothing can stop you. Nothing. You're unstoppable. You are Teflon, my friend. You are titanium. Get over that one, Evan. Get over. Listen. Go and talk to Tyler Perry. Actually, we're going to interview him on Friday. Go and talk to Tyler Perry. Talk to somebody. Reach out to them. I'm telling you, you're gonna get this fixed, man. And once you get past that, that's it. You're Teflon. You are unstoppable. You are bulletproof, my friend. Evan, you are going to be a force to be reckoned with. You've already done the hard stuff. The worst thing that could ever possibly happen to a professional day trader, you've already done. Check. Next. There's no bigger monster than that. So congratulations, Evan. Hats off to you, my friend. It's time to double down. Let's make it happen. I believe in you. I'm serious. I'm not just saying I believe in you. You know, I'm serious. You're here. You just blew your account. You're here. You got hope that you can still do it. There's somebody in you that says, you know what, I still got more. I'm not done. Right? And I used to tell a story about Usain Bolt, and I realized I'm 9 minutes over, guys. You got to go. That's fine, but I'm going to finish this thought. He wasn't a very strong runner, right? He wasn't doing much. He changed coaches. The new coach that he got just helped him figure out his stride, figure out his pace, figure everything out, right? The guy broke a world record, right? Fastest man, right? It was incredible. I mean, he won by I mean, what would be equivalent to miles compared to the person that was following him up, right? I mean, normally those races are called by splits of a second, but he won by seconds and broke the world record, right, in the Olympics. And he went back and he said, I'm not done. I got more. That wasn't all I had. I can do better. So he comes back, you know, in the next season for the Olympics and breaks his own record. Like, what? I mean, they were like, the crowd was going crazy. The announcers were like, that's incredible. That record is going to stand for decades. How are humans even possible of that? This is incredible, right? They've made documentaries about him. He went on to instant fame and fortune. He's got sponsors. I mean, the guy just blew up, right? Some nobody, couldn't run very well, just got the right coaching, and boom, he made it happen. And he said to himself, I got more. That wasn't all I had. And then he came back and he broke his own record, the one that was supposed to stand for so long. Well, it's only right that he breaks it, right? Incredible, right? And that's what you got to do. And believe me, there's always going to be somebody trying to stop you. Yourself, other people around you. See, I told you, you know what? Like all the doubters, all the haters, they're always there. And there's no shortage of them. Right? There's more of them than there is of everyone else. That's why there's the 10-80-10 rule. 10% of people will wash out, 80% are in the process, and there's a 10% superstars. Right? What is it that the 10% of successful people are doing that the 90% are not doing? Right? Everything. All the things the 90% don't want to do, that's what the 10% are doing. All the things they don't want to do. Pick yourself up from your bootstraps, Face your friends and your family and tell them you failed. Face your spouse and tell them you failed. But I'm not done. I got more. I can do this. And it's not one of those like, junkies in Hollywood or rather in Vegas saying, no, I just need, I know if I can just get another $100 and put it on craps that I'll get it back. I know that that machine was just about to hit. If I just had a few more quarters, it was going to pay out. No, man. Listen, you know how to do this, Evan. You know how to do this. So go back and figure out, right? You've got the whole map. You've got everything laid out right in front of you. It says, these are the things that I did that made me successful, and these are the things that I did that made me not successful. Let's cut out this not successful stuff, and let's just duplicate the successful stuff and just leave all that, and now I've got the whole map. I did it start to finish. I started here, and here's where I am now. All right, this is what it looks like. Let's fix this, right? And you can go forward from that point knowing I've already done the hard thing. Check. What's next? Let's go. I'm hungry. It's time to eat. You can't go any lower than that. It's only up from there, Evan. Get it, my friend. Absolutely, Jared. Jared says, stay with it. I've lost 2 accounts, and it's those that give up that never make it. Absolutely. My pleasure, David. Thank you. Nice. Already scheduled with Tyler. Solid, man. Tyler's the guy. That's awesome. All right, guys. I'm going to wrap up with that. I appreciate you guys bearing with me in the beginning there. As always, I hope this information is useful to you to help you, improve your up game. And I really want you guys to consider that, your perspective, the way you see things, the way you view things, and try to change that perception so that you can see the light, and not always the light at the end of the tunnel, but the light that is you're already standing in, that's already inside of you, that's all around you, not at the end of the tunnel, not off in the distance. You got it right here, right now. You got it. You got the light. Have it. Claim it. It's yours. Thanks again, guys, and we'll see you guys on Friday for the sweep. Otherwise, we'll see you next week for the mastermind. Have a good one.